Tonight, stabbing. Police say one person is injured in Fort St. John. Shots fired. Dawson Creek RCMP say 4 people are in custody. And incredible video. 2 people sent to hospital near Pouce Coupe. Good evening and thank you very much for joining us. And we begin tonight with a stabbing in Fort St. John. Mounties confirming the incident to CJDC-TV News, but not providing any additional information. What we do know is it happened Thursday night just before 7:30 near the Salvation Army. Witnesses say there was a heavy police presence in the area. Investigators saying one person was injured, but didn't say how badly. The Fort St. John RCMP had said there would be a press release about the stabbing on Friday afternoon. However, it was not released in time for our broadcast. And a report of shots fired in Dawson Creek ending with an arrest in Beaver Lodge this morning. At around 9:30, Mounties responding to at least 2 confirmed shots fired at 119 Avenue and 11th Street. Police saying suspects fired at an unoccupied vehicle before fleeing the scene. Witnesses then say the suspects were seen headed eastbound on Highway 2. The police pursuit ending in Beaver Lodge with 4 people arrested. No injuries have been reported. The 4 are still in police custody, waiting for formal charges to be laid. We have new video tonight showing a serious accident in Pouce Coupe on Saturday. It happened on Highway 2 just before 2 in the afternoon. This is dash cam footage of a semi heading northbound. A black truck is in the process of passing the big rig, but veers off the left-hand side of the road to avoid oncoming vehicle. The pickup then re-enters traffic and starts to lose control before slamming into a ditch. 2 people were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. They have since both been released. The highway was closed for a period of time while police investigated the crash. And while the investigation continues, charges are being considered. CJDC-TV News has learned the name of the driver, but is not releasing it as charges have yet to be laid. As students return to class next week, the Dawson Creek RCMP are reminding drivers and parents to be aware when they're behind the wheel. For drivers, the RCMP says school speed zone limits are back in effect on school days at 30 kilometers per hour from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. They're reminding motorists to be aware of designated crosswalks and to stop when a school bus has its stop sign extended. Now, for parents, Mounties say, avoid dropping your kids on the opposite side of the street from their school if possible. They're also asking parents to be patient and to avoid double parking in non-designated drop-off zones. Residents of Fort St. John using Handy Dart services will now see improved and expanded travel options on Sundays. Handy Dart is an accessible door-to-door transit service for people with permanent or temporary disabilities. BC Transit says more than 500 hours of service will be offered every year. It'll start in September and will be offered on Sundays from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The Transit Parliamentary Secretary says that means more people in the city will have access to safe and reliable transit when they need it the most. There's another possible measles exposure in Fort St. John to tell you about tonight. Public Health saying the Fort St. John Hospital is once again the site of a possible exposure. Now, if you were in the waiting area of the Fort St. John Emergency Department on August 29th from 9 p.m. to 1 the next morning, Northern Health says you may have been exposed to the virus. Anyone who has been exposed is being asked to isolate for a period of at least 4 days and to seek medical treatment. The Fort St. John RCMP wrapping up a drug investigation with the arrest of 2 young men. On August the 15th, police searched a hotel room near 93rd Avenue and 100th Street in Fort St. John. Following the search, 2 males aged 20 and 21 attempted to flee the scene. Mounties say they found drugs, 2 loaded handguns, and currency in the suspect vehicle. And according to investigators, 1 handgun was converted to fire fully automatic, which the RCMP says presented a serious risk to the community. Back in the hotel room, police allegedly found more drugs, money, and a 3rd firearm. The RCMP say both suspects are not from BC, but were operating a drug trafficking operation in Fort St. John. Both males were released from police custody pending the approval of charges. International Overdose Awareness Day is on Sunday, and organizers say this year's event in Fort St. John will bring awareness to residents on the poisoned drug crisis.
This will actually bring all that kind of information to the forefront so people can actually see what is available and seek help if they need it.
Moswell lost her son to a fatal overdose in 2018. She's since worked with a number of support groups like Moms Stop the Harm. Fort St. John didn't host an event last year, so Boswell decided to organize one this year. She says it starts at 10 a.m. with displays focusing on all the support groups and programs that have been offered by the city of Fort St. John. Boswell says there will be Indigenous dancers and drummers and a silent vigil starting at 1 p.m. Then at 4 in the afternoon, she's inviting people for a walk to remember those who have passed away. Boswell says it's important for people to show strength and to come together in order for things to change. And treatment for drug and alcohol addictions is a challenging process. Just detoxing alone proves too difficult for some. The province has made some significant progress reducing wait times for those ready to get help, but it's not yet available to all. Penny Daflos now with tonight's installment in her series examining addiction and the toxic drug crisis.
With the death toll in the thousands and climbing every day, critics blame the government for not doing more.
We need these individuals to getting help next week.
For illicit drug users wanting to end their addiction during a toxic drug crisis.
We need to get to a place in British Columbia where we've got a heavy focus on recovery.
It is incredibly frustrating and it's actually harmful. It's harmful to patients when they hear bits of information that is inaccurate or false and deters them from accessing services that may otherwise meet their needs.
Millions of tax dollars are poured into recovery each year, and Dr. Shauna Nolan co-founded a program simplifying the process.
The previous addiction treatment system was fairly fragmented and it was really difficult for patients and their families to navigate. Through the creation of a single front door, it streamlines people to one single telephone number to call to access substance use services.
When I was in the ambulance on my way to the RAC clinic, they just were like, they're really good at what they do.
Jamie Ramsey went to the Road to Recovery program after severe alcohol withdrawal saw her in and out of the ER.
Definitely felt like super overwhelmed, super embarrassed that I was there for something like that.
And found the team of doctors, nurses, and support workers who arranged for detox and more.
All I had to do was show up and say I need help. And everything else that I needed to be done was guided for me.
The detox rooms at St. Paul's prioritize patients with high-risk withdrawal symptoms, including hallucinations that might have landed them in the ICU.
One thing that people don't understand about addiction treatment is how incomplete our knowledge is of how to cure people. Even our best, most evidence-based treatment for addiction doesn't work for half of people.
There are more than 3,000 government-funded recovery beds. In the private sector, there are dozens of operators who charge big bucks and offer an array of methods with little oversight.
It's like the Wild West, and we really need to have it regulated.
Since Road to Recovery started, detox waits have shrunk to a day or two in Vancouver Coastal Health. They're now applying the same prioritization and efficiency strategy to recovery beds, aiming to slash those wait times so people get the support they need when and where they need it before they can change their minds. Penny Daflos, CTV News, Vancouver.
And the province is urging travelers hitting the road this long weekend to be fire smart as tinder dry conditions persist in many parts of British Columbia. The warning comes as RCMP and Penticton have arrested a man in connection with this suspicious wildfire that started in that community Monday. With the help of air support, firefighters quickly getting a handle on it, but you can see how close it was to nearby homes. Elsewhere across the province, 12 new fires have been reported in the last 24 hours, and that brings the active total to 83. Hot, dry conditions expected over the next several days will keep the fire danger rating elevated.
Even just a cigarette butt out the window could start a major fire. And so I really want to emphasize how important it is to be personally responsible right now, because a wildfire could destroy people's homes, it can destroy their livelihoods, really throw communities into chaos. And we never want to be in that position.
Evacuation alerts in Peachland have now been lifted as crews have contained a fire there. It was sparked when a motorhome crashed on the side of Highway 97. And the province has issued a consent order for an expansion at the Mount Polley Mine northeast of Williams Lake. The expansion would deepen the Springer Pit. It would also continue the discharge of treated water into Quesnel Lake, potentially extending the mine's operations to 2033. Now, Mount Polley is known as the site of Canada's worst mined waste disaster. Back in 2014, a tailings dam collapsed, sending more than 20 million cubic meters of wastewater into nearby lakes. The order issued today will allow parts of the project to move forward. However, full approval still depends on permits under the Mines and Environmental Management Act. A new report shows drivers in BC are paying the highest gas taxes in the country, in part due to a hidden carbon tax.
Premier David Eby made the right decision by cancelling the consumer portion of the carbon tax back in April, but British Columbian drivers are still being slapped with a back-end carbon tax buried in clean fuel regulations.
The findings show drivers in the Lower Mainland and Victoria pay the most because of regional transit taxes. The group is calling for the Prime Minister and BC's Premier to immediately reduce the gas tax burden on drivers in this province. And gases went up in Dawson Creek this week for the first time since April, when the consumer carbon tax was cancelled. The average price per litre is now $1.45.9. The BC General Employees Union has issued the province its 72-hour strike notice. The vote, 97.2% in favor of job action. The union, representing some 34,000 BC public service workers, could be off the job as soon as this Tuesday. Those workers include wildland firefighters, correctional officers, sheriffs, liquor and cannabis retail and distribution staff, social workers, administrative professionals, and other government employees. The union has been without a contract since March the 31st, and negotiations have been stalled since mid-July. The union is looking for higher wages and assurances with work-from-home rules. In the event of job action, Acting Deputy Premier Mike Farnworth says services that protect the health, safety, and welfare of all British Columbians will continue under essential service agreements. Well, to Alberta now, where several award-winning books may be removed from Edmonton public school libraries because of a supposed explicit sexual content. A former Edmonton School Board trustee was sent an internal document with a working list of the books flagged for removal. Well, A Handmaid's Tale, written by renowned Canadian author Margaret Atwood, is among them. So is Aldous Huxley's Brave New World and Forever by Judy Blume. And it follows an order from Alberta's education minister, something the former school trustee says they have very serious concerns with.
Think of a book like The Color Purple, for example, and say that's a pornographic novel. Does it include, sometimes upsetting content about, sexual assault? Yes, it should, in terms of what the story it's telling. I don't think that we should be always saying that we shouldn't have these conversations with youth. We should.
Edmonton's public school board refused to share the list of books with CTV that are planned to be banned. The board chair says staff worked over the summer to ensure only books that met the province's criteria would be banned. She says the board has concerns and has voiced opposition before the order was issued. Well, this afternoon, during a press conference, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith doubled down and defended the book's removals. Air Canada will be pausing fees and changing flight and seat selections temporarily, the airline says, until September the 12th. Passengers will have the fees waived on all Air Canada Express, and Air Canada Rouge flights. The change is only applicable to airline tickets purchased between August 27th and September 12th. The airline says customers can change their flights free of charge depending on the availability in the cabin that was originally purchased. However, the airline notes a fair difference may apply and only one change is being permitted. Staying with business news, the BC billionaire hoping to buy more than 24 leases of former Bay locations is getting more pushback. Hudson's Bay's landlords were back in court today. They're arguing that Ruby Liu does not have the cash, the experience, or the team in place to launch a new retailer. Liu wants to buy 25 leases for $69.1 million to open a new department store named after herself. The Bay hopes this money could help repay some of the roughly $1 billion that it owes its creditors. Canada's economy contracted in the second quarter under the weight of U.S. tariffs, according to Stats Canada. It's bad economic news for Canada as the GDP declined 1.6% in the second quarter of this year. It's thanks to a sharp drop-off in exports to the United States and a drop in business investment in Canada. President Trump declared a trade war on Canada soon after getting back into office, and that meant major tariffs against our economy in the second quarter, particularly targeting steel, aluminum, and autos. The worry here is clear that Canada could be pushed into a recession by a sitting U.S. president. And it's the end of an era as duty-free shipping to the United States ends today, with many Canadian businesses bracing for another financial hit. Starting today, the United States is eliminating the exemption. It allowed packages worth $800 or less to ship to the U.S. without duties. But now, full duties will be collected on all global packages entering the United States. Experts say some Canadian businesses are likely to lose U.S. customers as the change will make products more expensive. Last year, almost 1.4 billion packages worth more than $64 billion entered the States without being charged duties. And U.S. President Donald Trump has revoked the security detail of former Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, under normal circumstances, Harris's security detail would have come to an end last month, as vice presidents received protection for 6 months after leaving office. But former President Joe Biden extended her detail for an extra year, shortly before he left office. Trump's directive comes as Harris is set to embark on a book tour. All right, please do stay tuned. Noah will be right back after the break with a look at your long weekend weather.